Pretty good, pretty good. I started a little late because I knew, you said 3:30, so I said, I'm not even gonna start early. Let me take it easy and start later.
Hey, as long as it works out for our schedules, I'm glad we can make it happen.
Yeah, it's actually hard, because everybody got different schedules, working, weekends, different time
Holidays
zones.
coming up as well. Yeah,
Right,
it can be
right,
pretty
right,
rough.
right.
Would you mind if we merged our chats for
Yeah, you
this
can do.
portion?
You want to do it yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'll send the request.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'll set right here, and then all this time, I'm pretty sure it's working.
Yeah, I just have to set up the shared chats now.
Just say share, say yes, right?
Yeah. Starting the shared chat, and we're good to go.
All right, all right. Okay, it does the shadow and everything too. Oh no, that was one of my moderator name. Am I perfect? All right,
Yeah, so now we should be able to talk to each other. Fantastic.
You wanna share your screen that way I can capture and then we work from there?
Yeah, for sure. I'll share it in Discord.
There's both communities right now, guys. You guys know how it is. We always start with the shadow, of course, and then after that, the floor is for the content creator that is doing the guides. He got the topics like always. Yeah, diablo, that roster is nice, bro. What the hell? Jesus.
Yeah, I play the game a bit. I play the game and I spend a bit.
Damn, bro. Yo, red is my favorite color.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, we're in good company. Yeah, we're big fans of color red around
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's my favorite color, bro. That's insane, bro. Welcome, guys. What's going on, brothers?
Yeah, hello. It's Mr. 4K's chat. Hope you guys are having a great day.
All right. You want to start with the scouter first, or you want to do
Sure,
this?
up to you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll load into the scouter then.
Gonna be
And I will emphasize, it's very much a Evo Scouter focus for me, Evolutionary Legacy.
Yeah.
While I have played about 3 weeks of AT Scouter in the past to see if it would be something I'd enjoy, and I did enjoy it, but nowhere near as much as Evo. And I've played Evo since the very beginning. The thing I always joke about with my chat is when Evo Scouter was first released, we were doing Clown on Prog Week, and late in the week, I cleared on my Scouter with 2-piece Salvation relic set, because that did more damage than Halu at the time. So I'm a Scouter Evo main for life, for sure.
It wasn't that good before. Now it's way better in my opinion.
Yeah, I always talk about it as being a fourth line. It's a lot better now for sure, but still, as a consistent damage dealer, Scouter is like a fourth line player in a hockey analogy, or a backbench player in many other sports. It's gonna be there. It's gonna do what you need to most of the time, and take some pressure off the rest of your team when it comes to pushing those bars. But if you're looking for somebody that's gonna get the highlight reel goals, you need some other superstar heavy hitters like your Surge Blades or your other pumpers.
Or Soul Eater.
Breaker.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You can sell eaters.
Would you like me to just start talking through things? Or do you have any
you have the topics, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's the list that you sent me.
Yeah, if you can go through the topics and then at the end we just go for like a Q&A, and that way when I'm editing, I just make it easier,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if we're thinking about Tier 4 Evolution Scouter, and we're looking through the different trees, we can start by looking at the Evolution tree. It's going to be extremely straightforward for any Evolution Scouter. The reason being, we scale our synced skills when we transform with specialization. That means that we want to take as much specialization as we can get from the tree, and then if you're doing that on most classes in Lost Ark, you got to have crit from somewhere. And unfortunately, Scouter doesn't have any in its skill trees or the rest of its abilities. That means that you're taking the rest and crit on the first row, and everywhere else in the tree. We're taking Keen Sense, and we're taking Zealous Smite to get as much crit rate as we possibly can. As for the leftover points, we don't have any problems with the cooldowns of our spells. We take the Limit Break extra evolution damage, and then, because we're paralysis immune when we're transformed, we take Standing Striker, because we get really high value out of almost never getting paralyzed or knocked out of spells when we're playing it. So again, I cannot imagine personally anybody doing something different on Evolution Scouter here, because of, again, the very straightforward reality that you are a crit-starved class that scales off specialization. So,
big facts.
That said, yeah, there's a little bit more variety when we go to the Enlightenment tree, but not much, in my opinion. When we're thinking about this tree from the perspective of somebody that's, of course, 1680 compared to a 1660 Arc passive user, there's a few variations. We can talk about the 1660 variation first. If you're 1660 with full relic accessories and you've got all your points from horizontal, you're going to have 2 extra points that you can put in side nodes here. And I guess to just briefly walk through what our first three nodes do anyway, in case people are just brand new to the class, the class engraving that we're getting from the Enlightenment tree rather, is giving us a benefit to our suit, our sync meter, our identity here. That means that when we detransform, it's always going to come back to this 40% mark if it ends naturally. This means we have
Mm,
to spend less spells
right.
regenerating the meter so we can transform sooner. There is a spec breakpoint that people often think about related to this, but the truth is you just want to get as much spec as you can, and since we don't have to worry about accessories anymore, if you've got all the spec dumped in, like we have in the evolution tree, you'll always usually be able to transform in 2 to 3 spells, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Continuing down the tree, when you're thinking about how your consistent damage is applied more effectively, you're getting a cooldown reduction, and this is big in Tier 4, one of the big quality of lives we get, every time you cast one of your sync spells while transformed. Before, you had to actually hit the boss in order to get that cooldown refund. Now it's just on cast, meaning it's really easy, or more easy, to cycle through your rotation more comfortably, even when the boss can't be damaged, or if he dodges some of your patterns. Lastly, on this section, we're just getting a bunch of damage on the sync skills. As is the case for many of the classes in the Tier 4 Enlightenment section, that's why it's so important to make sure if you're switching over to Arc Passive, you're using at least this much power. As you get your relic accessories fully honed up around 1660, you're able to put a couple of points into these side nodes. And while this node gives you additional damage to your sync skill, so you call it just an overall damage increase, and it gives you slightly more than self-destruct sequence, in my opinion, and this is a big change we got in the last quality of life update, it's a no-brainer for self-destruct sequence. This means that every time your suit detransforms or you manually cancel it, you're also getting a big nuke of damage on the boss. And since
Interesting.
you're a melee, non-positional class for the most part as a scouter, you get a lot of value from this. So I personally would run 2 points here at 1660. And at 1680, we just get another identity spell that's a giant nuke. That's a no GCD cast, meaning it can be cast while you're doing your other spells. It allows
What?
you to get a lot of damage out in a high burst fashion with your 0 point
Oh,
EX skill here. So these three nodes, the no hit on this oversync, a nuke identity spell added, and then a self-destruct explosion when you detransform, added a lot of power to Evolution Scouter with the arc passive that wasn't there before. It's really, really handy. Okay, continuing then to the leap tree, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I just realized this weekend that they added the ability to test this row that we're going to be getting with Brel next month,
right.
because there's a lot of power here that we can talk about in a second. But briefly up top, we want to be
So,
scaling our transcendent power because our hyper awakening is pretty easy to cast. There's a small range restriction, but it's very large and easy to get off. So we want to be amplifying that damage. And then as for the unleash power node we take, our T skill does a lot of damage in those burst scenarios like I mentioned as well. And especially when paired with, in my opinion, autopilot here, this is what we're going to want to be taking to further amplify that damage, rather than worrying about the reduction of the cooldown or the the casting speed.
right.
If we're taking this node in the future, you'll see that it's an instant cast. It's another non-GCD cast, meaning we can burst while
Damn.
casting our other spells. And in terms of the
Jesus
cooldown, while
Christ.
there is some value as a constant damage dealer to reducing the cooldown further, I personally find a lot more value in just having it hit as hard as possible when you are choosing to overlap your burst. And furthermore, because your sync skill, your T skill rather, is a sync skill, its cooldowns are also reduced every time you cast one of your other transformation skills. So that sums up the arc passive trees for Scouter, but a lot of it obviously makes a lot more sense once you actually see it. We'll get there though, of course, as there's a few
Yeah.
things we probably want to talk through first. Okay,
What the hell?
so if you're thinking then about the skills as an evolution scouter, you do have your normal skills when you're not transformed. I think I will hop into Trixion here so we can start to show off a little bit more of this. And there is some variety and preference that can be applied to your normal skills. My personal preference, though, is always for consistency when it comes to being able to transform the most effectively inside of a fight, while also benefiting from one of the other things that Scouter has going for it, which is a lot of durability. While your defense coefficient is pretty low as a male gunner, I believe it's the same as a Deadeye, I think. I actually would have to double check. But the big thing is you get a giant shield as an Evo Scouter, meaning that you're really durable in fights. So I'll summon a boss here, and we can talk through some of the skills that you're going to be wanting to be concerning yourself with as an Evo Scouter player. The first thing that you'll see pretty much on every scouter's bar, no matter what spec they're playing, is mobile shot here. This is a rolling maneuver. That is a combo skill with a gunshot portion in the middle, a long ticking down cooldown, and then another roll at the end. The reason that this combo skill is so valuable is that it also stacks part of Scouter's passive identity, reload. This is giving me additional move and attack speed. And while you might not think that's important as an Evo Scouter player who has these spells that are self-resetting on such low cooldowns, it is still valuable because that attack and move speed you get can obviously help you while moving around the map while you're not transformed, but also it makes you transform faster. So that's one of the first things that you'll see, pretty much non-negotiable on every single Scouter's bar. Next up, we have the counter spell. I personally prefer Avalanche, which is another combo spell, although not used very frequently, with a dash forward and then a firing of the SMG afterwards. The only counterpart, though, is going to be the forward dash. That slap at the beginning of the forward dash is the counter portion, and for me, I find that to be how I like most of my counters to function throughout Lost Ark, and it works well. There is an alternative that many people will go for, being a backflip strike. Yeah. And for me personally, even though there's some very cute things you can do with this spell, it's not what I prefer. So when I'm countering, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be in the air
before like that, using that.
Yes. I've seen many clips of people dying like that. So while, again, the first slap when he dashes forward, that is the counter, and you can just tap it to get the counter out. I personally prefer using Avalanche, as it also has Destruction on it, which allows you to contribute to destruction checks even when you're not transformed. So again, it is a preference thing at the end of the day. These are spells that you're not using most of the time and only using when contributing to various checks. But you go into the Trixian testing room and you try them out and you decide which one works best for you. Like many things in Lost Ark, that's how you're going to be finding most of your success. Okay, we'll talk about a brief bit of terminology here, just in case anybody's ever considered playing Scouter and is already playing AT or is familiar with it. I refer to these all as normal skills, but the truth is, these yellow ones are the only actual normal skills. The purple skills are called joint skills because they use both your player as well as your drone to attack. And these blue skills are your drone skills, as they only fire from your drone. Now, the reason that's important is because there is still a consideration when it comes to transforming. We haven't even transformed yet on Evo Scouter, but these are important things to keep in mind. When you're using your blue skills, which are the primary skills you'll be using to generate meter in most cases, they can be fired from the drone anywhere, which means if your drone has already been cast somewhere else where you're moving it with shift click by default, the angle of the drone to the boss is where the boss will be attacked from. Now, the reason that this is important, though, is because your purple skills cast using both your player and the drone, they also summon the drone back to you. So if I, for example, cast my Energy Buster here, the drone recalls to me and is used in the combination attack.
Oh, wow.
Why is that important? Because if you're casting a blue drone skill and you cancel it by casting a purple skill, you're actually canceling the animation often. It's one of the biggest problems of Evolution Scouters before the spell has gone off. I'll show that one more time. You'll see that the missiles that normally come out here don't come out if I cast a purple skill too early. They got cut off a little bit.
Yeah.
I could cut them off sooner again if I'm being sloppy.
Yeah.
They don't even come out.
Yeah.
So for that reason, it's important to be aware of that when you're casting your spells. And typically, as an Evolution Scouter, your bread and butter for transforming is going to be your command raid missile and your baby drones. We'll talk about tripods afterwards, but these are the spells that have the ability to allow you to transform in just 2 spells on their own. While it is the fastest possible transformation, it's not necessarily the most consistent, which I'll talk about in a second. This is going to be a little bit annoying to test as we're finally going to transform here. As to get the 40% recovery of my sync meter, we actually have to wait for it to end on its own. If I cancel it myself, you'll see that it goes below 40%. This is, in my opinion, actually one of the most frustrating things about playing Evolution Scouter. But at the end of the day, you do want to be transformed as often as possible, and it's very rare that you'd want to manually detransform. You did see that animation of the self-destruct that we talked about earlier when I manually detransform, hitting the boss for some extra damage.
Oh, wow.
But then I'd have to rebuild extra meter if I canceled it that early in my transformation.
Uh,
Again, it's not ideal, but it does give you some push immunity. If you were in an absolute pinch situation and you had no other solutions, you could detransform to avoid getting knocked off gravity death, for example. Transforming, again, we can let the transformation run out so that I can show off the rebuilding of the meter. And since it's a 20-second transformation cycle, I guess we could start talking about some of the sync skills as well. The first one is one of our lowest cooldown spells, Comet Strike, which is just a dash forward that does damage hitting in the front. The reason that this is a valuable spell is because it can be used to combo other spells, which we'll come back to. Now that we have our 40% sync meter from detransforming, you can see that if I cast raid missiles and every rocket hits, that's an important part, a very important part,
yeah.
and then baby drones, as long as any one of them hit, we've got the full meter in 2 seconds.
Oh.
That allows us to transform right away. And again, in terms of pure fastest timing, that is the fastest way to transform by a few fractions of a second. What I prefer to do, as I'll show you on my next regeneration, is actually cast missiles into high flight, fiery escape, or sorry, long flight, and then baby drones. The reason that I do this is that this spell, Fiery Escape, provides you with a shield when cast. And this shield lasts.
Let me cut you off real quick. The chat is saying that your stream is frozen, so I didn't want to cut you off in the middle of the you explaining it. But I don't know if something on your end when you transition the chats that your stream lag or froze.
My stream, let's see.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's see if I can have it corrected. You can still see my screen though, right?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to cut you off. That way you don't lose your title. But they kept on telling me so.
Thank you. We'll see if I can correct that. I believe it's a Discord thing when I'm streaming in Discord. I'll just quickly restart my stream. That shouldn't have actually it might have an impact on us.
Or maybe you finish this one and then on the second interview.
Yeah, perhaps we'll try that. Yeah, we'll finish off the scouter first because people should be watching you anyway if they can't see what's going on. All right. So what we were talking about though was the preferred method of transformation, which is the raid missiles into fiery escape, because it provides a shield that will last even after you transform. This is extra durability that allows you to be even tankier once you are in your transform state. Now again, because this is a joint skill, you have to be careful about the timing, not to cancel your missiles. And the reason that this is a preferred thing as well is that you actually can get value from animation canceling as long as you time it correctly. And if you were not casting a joint skill in between, look at the delay when I'm casting 2 blue skills back to back as fast as I can.
Yeah.
There's a little pause where your character has to wait before they can cast the next drone skill. So comboing it with another spell provides you with additional durability, a little bit of extra meter gain by hitting Fiery Escape on the boss as well, and then allows you to transform more consistently. Now, let's talk about the last few spells on the bar that are, to be very frank, not very often used, but again, open to preference if somebody wanted to try something else. Annihilation Mode is something you'll see some scouters use as another meter generation option with a different tripod. I prefer instead to take Reformation on Annihilation Mode in the second line here, but if you chose to take Core Energy, you'd be able to generate meter pretty quickly and effectively here as well. The problem is, if you take this tripod, you're no longer firing it straight forward, and instead you become a Beyblade. A Beyblade that is animation locked, that can only be cancelled with your mobile shot or your spacebar. And if you have neither of those options available, and the boss does a grab or something scary, you're a sitting duck there for a few moments. So for me personally, I like to have the ability to just cancel the spell and walk away, which is why I take Reformation instead. We'll talk through all the tripods towards the end, I find, because it's actually something that's very much up to preference all the time. But your last true meter gen spell that is used if you ever miss some of your rockets, for example, because that's just a demonstration. Oh, I should have it on unlimited resources. You can see if I miss some of my rockets here, and some of them fly off,
Yeah.
compared to if I hit all of them, it feels a lot more.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
big deal whether you miss
Yeah.
the rockets or not. So if the boss moves out of them, that's a big problem.
Right.
So you can supplement that with this one last blue skill flare beam, which I also use pretty frequently if the boss moves,
Right.
which is a pretty fast spell. If the lasers hit, you get the meter back. So that can do things like supplement your meter gain if you miss some rockets or happen to miss your baby drones. Your purple skills also do fill your meter, but much slower. So again, they're meant to be used as kind of a last resort to
Right.
fill things up. Okay, with that said, let's finally get into the exciting stuff. Wall
Yeah.
transformance in Evo Scouter. This is where you want to be spending most of your time. To be frank, this is the only place that you're doing damage when you're an Evo Scouter. We briefly talked through the Q spell, which we can use to combo into our other spells, mainly our Echelon Beam. Our Echelon Beam and our Crimson Breaker are our hardest hitting spells on Scouter. And the annoying thing that many scouters run into, but is very important, is that Echelon Beam is a positional spell.
Yeah.
It is a head attack spell, meaning that if you are not head attacking this as one of your hardest hitting spells, you're losing a significant portion of your damage, as much as, say, 13 or 15% throughout the course of a fight.
Damn.
So you can see that's 93 million, 102 as the Adrenaline stacks up. We haven't talked about engravings yet, but Adrenaline as a crit starve class, again, makes sense. So 105, 109, around that range if we hit the head, and on the body, it's a big difference.
Right.
On one of your hardest hitting spells, when that's buffed by a support, it's really crucial to try to maximize that head attack uptime on this spell. And we talked about comboing it with the Comet Strike. This is when I cast it naked. When I cast it with the Comet Strike, it's slightly faster.
Yeah.
That's why often the opening combo for a Scouter will include that. While the other spells don't benefit in the same way, in terms of your Slug Shot, your Surge Blow, and your Crimson Breaker, your E, Laser Blades, another iconic Evo Scouter spell, does. When cast without being comboed with Comet Strike,
Go slow.
you just spin around once, it's slow, and it's only doing a portion of the damage. When you cast it comboed with Comet Strike, it is cast a second time and doing 20% more damage, like this. This is
Yeah.
another significant thing. Effectively, if you ever see me or an Evo Scouter cast Laser Blade without first Comet Striking, they made a mistake. You never want to be doing this. You always want to be doing that.
Yeah.
Now, let's apply some cooldowns to start to talk about the way that those spells interact. Again, your opening is usually going to be comboing your Comet Strike into a head attack Echelon Beam. And then the rest of these spells here, you can think of as fillers for your Crimson Breaker and your Echelon Beam, as they're on low cooldowns, and when cast, they are reducing the cooldowns of your other spells. So you see 6 seconds on the Echelon Beam, and you can see it chunking away as I cast the other spells. 11 seconds on the Crimson Breaker. As we cast other spells, you see it ticking down faster than that time. Again, that's a crucial part of getting the damage out on the Evo Scouter, because in a perfect scenario, in a single transformation, you'd like to get 3 Crimson Breakers off in total. I'll do a full rotation here. Again, I'm weaving in my W and my E to reduce the cooldown of the other spells, with a prioritization on the R and S. When done correctly, you're able to get 3 Crimson Breakers in, which is another thing that can severely increase your damage over the course of a fight. In terms of the rune assignment on these skills for Evolution Scouter, you'll note that on the normal spells, we don't have very many runes at all. I'll sort by equipped tier, and you can see that we only have 2 wealth runes on our raid missiles and our baby drones. This is because when we showed earlier with this assignment, we are able to transform if both these spells hit all of their hits. Now, the rest of the runes, that's all on the spells that are our bread and butter. When we're transformed, we have these low cooldown spells in the form of Comet Strike and Slug Shot, and in tier 4 with an extra stacking dot rune, I choose to take Poison and Bleed together. Some people will also take quick recharge on one of these
Right.
as a way to reduce the cooldown of your spells further, which can be useful if you have lower level cooldown gems. I'm running a level 8 tier 4 gem, giving me the 20% cooldown reduction, and it really does help to make things comfier. But this can function even as low as a level 5 or 4 tier 4 gem, especially if you're running that quick recharge. Because you're casting so frequently, you often do get pretty good value from it. As for the rest of our damaging spells, Gale Winds all the way. We
Mhm.
want to be casting as many spells inside of our transformation window as possible, so we take the Gale Winds to have that help us out. Since we're talking about runes while looking at the skill page here, we can take a second to further talk about the tripods and the gems that go into things. When we're thinking about the gems, you'll note that in Trixion, I only have 2 gems equipped here, one damage gem for transformation sync skills and another cooldown gem. As functionally as a transformation class, that is all you need to get things going. But as somebody that mains another class with high level gems, I actually equip a bunch of sharpshooter gems in the rest of these slots because the base attack power that you get from the gem effect does apply to your overall basic attack power total. This is a big increase and can help you be more competitive in tier 4, another thing that we didn't have previously in tier 3. Talking about engravings. Again, we're a crit starved class, so adrenaline is a must. We want to make sure we're having adrenaline and getting that extra crit rate to help us have our hard hitting sync skills crit more often. I personally opt to take Curse Doll as an option because I play Curse Doll on all of my classes and I don't
Mhm.
notice the penalty very much, and it's a really consistent outgoing damage option available to us. Grudge, most people will tell you, non negotiable. Raid Captain, really high effectiveness on Evolution Scouter because our identity gives us movement speed, allowing us to easily cap it. And Barricade is a really efficient budget option for Evolution Scouters because, as you saw when we are transformed, we
You
get a
got a
giant
shield.
shield.
Right.
60% of our HP. The entire time we're doing damage, you have that shield. If that shield ever breaks while you're playing Evo Scouter, you don't do damage anymore and you're detransformed forcibly. So it's something that is really efficient for us. The other option that many people will consider over Cursed Doll, or in place of Barricade, would be Keen Blunt Weapon as an option, especially if you have the opportunity to play with crit synergy, or you have a higher level adrenaline, or you have other sources of crit from, for example, your bracelet or your rings. Then a Keen Blunt Weapon engraving swap does hold quite a bit of value. Alternatively, if you're somebody that hates Cursed Doll, you could also run Stabilized Status on Evolution Scouter. Because you have the shield so frequently, it can often be easy to keep your health high, although it is something you have to be careful of to make sure that you have that actual bonus applied and you're above that 65% health mark. Okay, let's finally talk about some tripods on all of these skills. On your sync skills, they're transformation skills. They don't have tripods. At least until Smilegate decides otherwise, we don't have that option. On our T skill, same thing. That's going to be covered in the leap tree, which we already talked a little bit about, but that doesn't have tripods either in this system. And on your normal skills, again, a whole lot of this comes down to preference, but my recommendations are a lower cooldown on your mobile shot, the movement speed to help you move around, and evasive maneuver over push immunity, as this can help you fully ignore the effects of damage or hits on certain attacks. It's not something that I, you know, always hope it's going to happen because it's only 30% dodge rate, but it's nice when it does. On Avalanche, my counterspell, I choose to use Diversion and Neat Combination, mostly for the extra movement speed on the dash, or movement distance, 2 meters. On Fiery Escape, I've swapped back and forth a few times on this one. Exno Mobility is a mandatory one in my opinion, just for the extra distance while you're traveling. But while I'm using Long Fight right now, you might also want to try High Flight. This changes it from a holding spell to a tapped spell,
Damn. Oh
but it
yeah,
goes
yeah.
a very long distance
Right.
and allows you to just double check and make sure you can still hear me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. A very long distance and allows you to make sure that you're able to get over certain large bosses and make sure that you're repositioning very quickly. For example, I do recall, again, back in the clown days on a bingo, I was able to get from one square diagonally very quickly to another with this.
That's really
But
nice.
you lose some control. So for me personally these days, especially with that quick transformation method I showed earlier, Oops, I didn't save.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong skill. This is quickness, and this is at a high flight, long flight. This has collision with the boss.
Yeah.
So you're able to move into the boss and use it as a meter generation spell, while also being able more in control of the spell. Because you can cancel it at any time, or simply tap it to get the full value of the shield without repositioning yourself.
That's how I play, guys.
Yeah, whatever works in that way.
I
For
play.
Energy Buster, again, while this is a really powerful spell when used as a damage spell, for us, it's mostly just used as a long-range meter generator. So while not caring too much about damage, I take the crit rate in a Lightning Buster. For Skilled Defender, it does increase the damage, which is important rather than, say, condense, because it's just tapping the spell rather than channeling it. We just want to get it off quickly. And then for Meltdown as well, we want to have this set up. So again, it's just quickly getting the damage out rather than doing the most damage possible, because we're not using it for damage. If anything, we're using it for multi-hit, for stagger, and for
Meter again.
regenerating our meter.
Right.
Command Flare Beam. Again, we take the core energy charge tripods on these blue skulls to make sure that they are generating as much as we can. The Scar leaves behind a flame area that can be good for multi-hit and like freeing your allies. And then Laser Cut is making this so that it shoots in a line in front, making it easier to hit at long range. I'll quickly demonstrate what I mean by that. In cases where I want to quickly generate meter, but I have to hide somewhere because of mechanic, for example, I can cast this, and it hits very far away, even if I'm at quite a distance. So it's another good option in that way. On Annihilation mode, we already talked about this a little bit in terms of reformation and core energy charge. It is something that many scouters will take if they want another, get out of jail free card to generate their meter. But for me personally, I like the forward firing attack. Battery saving mode means that it's not going to eat into too much of your battery, which we usually don't care about on Evolutionary Scouter, but if you're in a situation where you have to cast all of your spells, it can become a little bit tight. So
Yeah.
using this makes it a little bit smoother, and we don't get a lot of benefit from the other ones because we don't use this spell often. Comrade is, again, just making sure that it's firing extra damage. As for baby drones and command raid missile, again, core energy supply is essential. This is just increasing the damage, but again, we don't really care about that too much. And roundup attack is further increasing the damage, but ensuring that it's cast in a way that is, again, quick. We want these to come out fast and hit as quickly as we can in order to get the meter. We use purple wealth on baby drones and raid missiles gets the legendary wealth room, because this is the one that we get more value from, especially if we can hit all rockets. Taking a look at those tripods lastly, again, core energy charge, organ missile, and weak point destruction, primarily to make sure again that we are getting these out quickly while getting some extra damage, because it's better to have it than not, but it's
Right.
just definitely not a priority. Okay, it feels like I've been yapping for quite a while, and I haven't even showed off the coolest part of the Scouter kit, which is that new stuff from Tier 4, our T-skill and our identity. While I talked through the basic rotation earlier, let's quickly slow down the stuff that people that know old Tier 4 Scout or Tier 3 Scouter might not be familiar with. Our identity, EX.0.
Damn.
It's a winding up spell with several things shooting out at first,
Wait,
and then a nuke that comes out at the end.
wait, that's
You get
that's by himself?
that was the one spell,
So
and it happens once every transformation.
by himself?
You have to press your identity button, but
Uh,
this is one of those non-GCD spells. So I can be casting other spells over here, doing my thing,
yeah. What?
and it's going on while I'm casting. And you can see the last hit is a pretty big number, and if you're able to hit everything, including the last hit, you get a lot of value. Now, it is a more of a tricky spell to hit,
Right.
because, again, it's got a pretty long duration, and it hits one spot, meaning that if the boss moves out of it, Argios, for example, it's pretty common for him to dodge the last hit, causing you to lose a lot of damage. But in
Yeah.
a burst scenario where you know the boss is not going to move, and again, you get one of these per transformation. So that's another fun thing to think about. You can use it once per transformation and only once. So as long as you're patient with it inside this 20-second transformation, and you know it's going to hit the boss when you use it, you're not losing any value, as long as you use it once per transformation.
He's hard.
Then
He's hard.
yeah, I mean, it's more of a fluid prioritization system in which you're just casting the spells when they come off cooldown while thinking about when they're most likely to hit. The T skill, in the current iteration without bracelets, it's a little annoying. It's got a long animation. That's when I'm able to move. After the actual attack starts is when I'm able to move right now in early T4. However, when we get our bracelets, this is where I was talking about it being a no-brainer. This changes it to an instant cast at the location of your cursor and significantly increases the damage. This means that instead of casting it and then being locked in place, I can cast it while casting other spells immediately.
What?
It's a really big change, and it's what I'm most looking forward to from Brel. This being a spell that doesn't have an animation on my player when I cast it. So all of this together puts you in a position where you have these 2 extra nukes as an Evolution Scouter on top of your already improved sync skills, allowing you to do a lot of burst damage that you didn't have before. Oh, I detransformed. Let's try that one more time.
Holy shit!
That's just a lot of numbers happening all at once. We can quickly throw on the test to actually demonstrate that.
That's huge, bro! Dude, what? Yeah!
So in a few seconds, and again, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it is up, when it's used in an atro, when you're used with your supports, you're able to really powerfully, hit the boss in ways that you couldn't before as an Evo Scouter. So that's why. Well, I mean, I've always liked Evo Scouter, but that's these days why I really, really appreciate it in terms of where we've gone. I guess there's a few last things I didn't talk about, just some loose ends, but they're pretty straightforward. The stone that you're going to want on your Scouter is going to be any of the damage engravings that you have. There is slightly more efficiency if you're taking it on, not Grudge, and Adrenaline can be hit or miss. But honestly, if you get a good one of these stones, if you're looking for a cheap one, Barricade can be a great option. All of these are damage increases that are valuable to you. Further to that, the last thing I guess we didn't talk about too much is the Awakening. You're a consistent damage dealer, so it's not the highlight of the show,
Right.
but you only use the Airstrike Awakening on Evolution Scouter rather than the one used by AT, which is this long carpet of missiles that come through. And as they hit, crucially, especially for fight openings, you'll see that they generate a lot of meter for you.
Right.
So from an empty meter, casting this Awakening, as the rockets hit, they rapidly fill your meter to full. Yep. So it's a class that doesn't require a stimulant in many cases, if you're looking to be a bit more efficient to get that meter full so you can transform. And the Hyper Awakening, I mean, I don't think there's too many people's Hyper Awakenings that aren't super fun and cool, but the Scouters,
super
we
nice
hack
and
into
cool.
the mainframe a little bit.
Yeah. That shit's dope, bro.
And the cool thing about this is the range of the attack. You can see the circle is very large. So like many classes, if you're thinking about Echidna, for example, you can place this between the 2 snakes, and it will hit both of them. As long as the tip of the circle is on the boss at all, you're going to be getting the full damage value. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Okay, did you want me to do a quick couple cycles through the rotation now?
Yes, that'd be huge. Because I already saw something that I actually don't do, but I actually can't wait for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of Trixie and simulation, it's a little bit tough to do it effectively these days because we don't have the ability to apply Malices. But I'll try doing this with Spirit Absorption with 0 relic bonuses applied, just to simulate a bit of that attack speed that you get from a support. As it does become important when you're trying to squeeze in that 3 Crimson
third
Breakers
one, right?
that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So here we go again, just to reiterate what I'm doing as I approach the rotation. If my meter is not full, I'm usually regenerating my meter with, actually, we'll do the full thing. We'll let this sync suit run out so you can see the full thing, where I'm using my raid missiles and my baby drones along with my fiery escape to regenerate the meter. And then I'll be using my mobile shot to gain the attack and move speed bonus, while also using that to cancel some of my drone skills as well. All that put together makes for a really fast transformation in between cycles. So here, 40%.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Okay.
You can see with
Yeah.
yearning applied,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
breathing room
Yeah.
is significantly larger.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And if you're using that method that I described to transform, you really consistently get the cooldowns back, especially for your fiery escape, to get that extra shielding at the start of your transformation. Again, it might not seem like much, but especially when content is ever harder, it really helps you maintain your transformation state. Because one of the worst things that can happen is detransforming and having to spend extra gauge builders in order to transform.
Yeah, qué
So this is
poderoso,
the
bro.
fourth rotation that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And now you can see my T skill will come back up towards the end of this one. And it's important to try to get that T skill out as soon as you can. Because as a reminder, as a sync skill, every time I cast one of my other sync skills, I'm reducing its cooldown by half a second. In Trixion here, I'm obviously standing at the head, and you do want to prioritize hitting your Echelon Beam on the head, but it's more important to cycle your spells. So if a boss moves, you move with it and cast your spells intentionally.
Yes, qué poderoso. Yes, guys.
And one last thing I forgot to mention in terms of the combos, your spacebar can also be used to combo with laser blades to get the bonus effect. This is extremely important when you need to close large gaps, for example, in situations where you might be using your Comet Strike and then your spacebar to get into range of something, or even more importantly for a skilled player, using your spacebar to say, push me in an attack from Thamai, for example, while still getting your damage out. So that's Evolution Scouter. One of my favorite classes, in fact, what I consider my second main DPS in my roster.
Hey, I'm pretty sure nobody got any questions. You guys have any questions, guys, since regards to this class? It's insane. I actually want to ask you, can you transform again to ask you something?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
the rotation that I was doing, so I was doing QR, right? QR, and then W to reset, and then the S. But you use the S, and it actually makes sense because you can use three at the same time. I was
That's
just
right.
trying to see if you do key Q and R and then W, can you still squeeze 3S or not?
You definitely can. Yes.
You can,
You're
right?
getting. Yeah, you absolutely can.
Okay,
An
okay.
important part of the damage consideration of Scouter is that when you're casting these spells, you are stacking up your engraving to do extra damage.
Right.
And it depends on, again, what the boss is doing and how reliable you'll be able to fit the spell in. But if you're having level 8 cooldown gems, again, you're going to be able to do this for sure. That's maybe worth demonstrating briefly, just to like prove that, I'm not full of it when I'm talking about these gems being functional on lower cooldown ratings. Let's see, how low can we go in Trixion right now?
Don't worry, guys. We're gonna cover every single engraving in the game. We're gonna do 26 first, the ones that I play, and then we're gonna go to the other ones. Okay? Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't hate. Don't hate. Don't hate the player. Don't hate the player. Yo, bro, that's insane, dude.
You can definitely feel the gap in the spells for me personally.
Yeah.
It will be tighter for sure. You can see I'm standing around here.
Right.
I'd usually throw in an auto attack there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely gets a lot tighter in that situation. But you're not going to be able to hit that every single time anyway. At the end of the day, it's something that is the ideal.
Right.
Yeah, it's the ideal, but it's not something that you're going to get every single rotation of every single raid. It's what you want to be trying to go for, if you can. Any other questions?
Nah, man, that's huge, bro. The fact with the Versace bracelet, what the hell?
Yeah, it's going to be a big difference for us.
That combo is crazy, dude. No GCD, you know what? That three skills at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of burst very quickly, and when timed correctly or at the opening of a fight, really can help you pop off inside the support burst windows.
Don't
which is
be
something a
crying.
lot of
Don't be
people don't
crying,
think
guys.
about.
When you lose against an evil scouter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a fun way to think about this in terms of parsing and how much damage it does. If I'm doing a Trixian parse, when I was doing Trixian parses at 4-piece evolution gear from A gear, so ancient gear from A gear, my scouter did 1 million less DPS than my 1710 sharpshooter in
Yeah,
Trixian. If you are able to stick to the boss and completely be transformed for every possible second,
yeah,
the scouter's damage is fantastic.
yeah,
The
yeah.
problem is the second that you do not,
Right, hit something. There you
like,
go.
look how close it is. That seems like it won't hit, right?
I know
Instead,
the,
now
I know the
I have to
feeling.
take 8 years to regenerate my meter.
And
Oh,
then
now I can fight. Oh, but Behemoth's head is already gone. You know, it's it's one of those situations.
you
I
guys
like
don't
to
know
refer to
anything
those
about that,
as
guys. Yeah.
emo scouter things or scouter things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's right.
Or
Well,
another very common one is if I detransform right as the burst window is happening. Well, that's unfortunate. I have to spend 4 seconds
yeah,
or longer
yeah.
transform again. It's really frustrating, but yeah, that's a Evo Scouter for you.
That's Evil Scouter, guys. And well, this is it. We're gonna have him again with another interview. He's gonna be doing sharpshooter, where that's his strength at. He's pretty good at this. I'm pretty 100% agree with everything he's saying. And it's a W, all around a W, 100%. I love you, Fanny. Thank you so much for the interview, bro. And then, well, let's go. Make sure to fix your situation with your
Yeah,
stream.
thanks so much, Mr. 4K. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
so yeah, I'm gonna start the stream back up, and we can swap over to Sharpshooter. Still okay for time?
Yeah,
Okay, fantastic.
I'll be here. I'll be here.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go
Oh,
anywhere. I'm
leave
just
Discord. Okay.
gonna restart my stream, and hopefully that resolves